we all end up realizing that we can have the styled, beautiful home that we want with a lot less stuff. So for people like me, obsessed with beauty, this is such a great shortcut to decluttering instead of picking every individual item up and asking, does this bring me joy? Would I buy this again? When's the last time I used it? There's none of that. It's just we're making the decision based on the visual look of the room because we have the functional things that it needs.
You're now listening to Design Curious, a place where you, creative one, are here to learn about what it really is like to be an interior designer. And I'm your host and mentor, Rebecca Ward. If you're worried about how to succeed in a creative career, if you're ready to learn your next steps to become an interior designer, and if you want the satisfaction of doing something you love every day, you are in the right place. Grab a coffee, a notebook, and let's dig into today's episode. Hello, and welcome to episode 205 of Design Curious Podcast. Today on the podcast, I have Myquillyn Smith, also known as The Nester, is a New York Times and Wall Street Journal bestselling author of Welcome Home and Cozy Minimalist Home. For the past 15 years, she has been encouraging women to embrace their space, imperfections and all, and make it their own. Her home in North Carolina has been featured in Better Homes and Gardens, Ladies' Home Journal, and Cottage and Bungalows. She's never met a home she didn't love. Find her online at thenester.com and on Instagram at The Nester. So let's talk to Myquillyn and figure out why she hasn't found a home that she's never loved. Hi, Myquillyn. Welcome to Design Curious Podcast. It's great to have you.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm really glad to be here.
Yeah. And I am excited because you have a book that's coming out. It's going to be released tomorrow from when this airs. And it is called House Hushing, which I'm very curious about. Before we get to that, though, first, I'd always love to hear how your path into dealing with the home, decluttering and decorating, and how did you get into where you are now, basically?
Well, it all started when I was a little girl playing with Barbies and glamour gals and decorating the cruise ship and decorating the Barbie houses. And I just loved it. I loved playing with furniture. I was no fun to play with for my sister because I didn't care about the Barbies or any of the dolls. I just loved their stuff. I loved to rearrange rooms, rearranging my own room. I loved all of that. And then in college, I did 3 years of elementary education. And then it hit me. I'm going to have to get up and go to school every day, even as a teacher. And I just didn't want to have to do that. So I changed my major to interior design for a year. Then my husband ended up wanting to get his master's. So I dropped out, put him through school. And a few years later, I did a one-day decorating class, which took 7 days, even though it teaches you how to help people with their house in one day. So it was decorating and styling, staging their home for sale, that type of thing, and really enjoyed that. And then blogging happened. So in 2007, I started a blog. It was the best thing ever because we could all chit chat and connect and talk to each other. So I started a blog about just my own house as we did and talked about window mistreatments and just what I was doing in my own home. We were renting at the time. And it was just so enjoyable. It took off. I loved it. And since then, I'm on my 5th book. I have an online community called the Cozy Minimalist Community where it's like a decorating club. So we do step-by-step decorating with the most amount of style and the least amount of stuff. And I've never met a home I didn't love. I'm in my 15th home. My husband and I have been married 30 years. We raised 3 boys. I hope I'm going to be here for a while. I mean, our last house we were in for 9 years. This one we've been in for 3 or 4 years now. I think we're here to stay for a while, but I live in an old historical Victorian house and she's taught me a lot. I just say that.
Yeah, I'm sure the houses speak to you. Let's dig into that a little bit. And how has it been with the historical home? How was it when you first got it and how have you changed it?
Well, I've always loved historical homes. However, I've always said I would live in any kind of home except a Victorian. Because they're always a haunted house. They're always kind of creepy. And they have so much detail, and
Mm-hmm.
usually they're like over decorated in a way, and I am not a super loud decorator anyway. Like I don't like a lot of color, a ton of pattern, and I feel like that's exactly what a Victorian house is. It has all this detail and weird angles and creepy attics and all kinds of random things that weren't symmetrical. And it just ended up the location. And this house is really sweet. We live right across the street from a church. It has church bells. We can walk
Oh.
downtown. I mean, I've really fallen in love with this style of house. But when we moved in, the rooms had lots of wallpaper, lots of pattern, and lots of color, lots of built-ins. There's 5 fireplaces. Most of them are corner fireplaces, which is an additional issue.
Mm-hmm.
The rugs, just a placement of furniture. There's not a lot of wall space. There's a lot of windows. There's a lot of doors, which is a great problem to have. There's a lot
Mm-hmm.
of millwork. There's high ceilings. There's a lot of built-ins, which again, I'm always like, I can't wait to have built-ins. But when you put all your stuff on built-ins, then everything you own is on display. It's a lot. And suddenly you realize like maybe everything shouldn't be setting out after all. So I've had to like really work with this house because even before we moved in, when the owners moved out and we first, you go in the house after you close. And I remember walking around and just feeling like this house feels full. Like it's already she has so much to say. So as we moved in, I really had to work with it because I have my own style, as we all do.
Mm-hmm.
And, I like my style to show. So no matter where you move, it's like you and your house are getting together and figuring out how your styles can blend. But I've never been in a house as bossy as a Victorian. And I think that really helped me write this book because it made me face problems I've never had to face before living in my more simple homes, and helped me maybe understand people that lived in homes that were a bit louder. Even 1980s homes have a lot of angles. They have a lot
Mm-hmm.
of different shaped windows. They have maybe a high ceiling in one part and not in another part. And so it's not just Victorian, it's just different style of homes. Or if you have a type of home maybe that's been added onto, it could also feel like that. So just different homes have different personalities. But as I talk about hushing the house and house hushing, things like that, I don't really consider myself a declutterer, but I love decor and I also love a peaceful home. And what I noticed over time, and especially in this Victorian, is that I felt like my house was loud. I felt like it had visual noise, whether it was wallpaper with a pattern or a bright color or my own stuff being layered in. The visual noise of this house was too much for me. And it took me about a year and a half to really figure out all the different ways I could quiet it. Is one way what the minimalists tell us to get rid of clutter? Yes, like that's a great way to lower the quantity. But even with that, I had to learn other ways besides just that. And that's really what I love about house hushing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and you mentioned that even when you first purchased the home without anything in it, it was loud, right? And so like you can't declutter an empty house.
Right.
So
I'm not going to like rip down historical molding or anything. So you're exactly right.
yeah. Yeah. So maybe get into a little bit more about what exactly house hushing involves if we were to
Yeah,
do that.
absolutely. Well, house hushing really is a simple way to decorate and declutter for people obsessed with beauty, because I think a lot of people there are people that don't have a problem decluttering. Oh, I have too much stuff, I'll declutter. And then there's other people that maybe we all have our different issues. But the particular issue that I had with decluttering, which I think there are a big group of people that can relate to, is for most of my life, I've spent my time in my house making it pretty and making it cozy and making it welcoming. And when you feel like your house is getting loud, when you come home and you're like, oh, it feels like a to-do list, or I need to move stuff just so I can cook dinner, or just maybe all the details in the house are like asking for too much of your attention, then you need to be able to turn down the visual volume. And of course, yes, I want to do that by getting rid of some things, but the house hushing itself has 4 parts. So there are 4 ways to quiet or hush a house. And one is backwards decluttering. And that's like a method where we go through and instead of making your decisions first, you first get to enjoy a simple room. So that's magical. The second way is what I call quiet decorating. So that a lot of what I did here in this Victorian was like, how can I honor what she has, but maybe just turn down the visual volume a bit. And so that talks about things like pattern or color or scale or texture, all kinds of, there's like 10 main ways. I'm sure there's a lot more ways than that we have control of, and it works the opposite way too. If you were, maybe you moved from a little house to like you won the lottery and you moved into a big mansion and you're like, this feels echoey and I need to cozy it up. You use those same skills and you turn up the coziness. So, it can work both ways. They're really good things to be aware of. Also, like soulful styling. It's one thing to go to TJ Maxx. I love TJ Maxx. I love Home Goods. I love Target. I love all the stores. But it's much more meaningful if we can decorate first with the things from the past, from the present, from the future goals, things like that are really meaningful to us. Letters, photos, tchotchkes, all those different things that we have that maybe be packed up if we can first make room for them in our house. And so I talk about soulful styling. That's another way to hush your house, but honor the things that are meaningful to you. And then lastly, the fourth part of house hushing is really thinking about seasonal simplicity. And that, of course, includes the seasons, winter, spring, summer, and fall. I've got some tips for that, but also thinking about your own season. Last fall may be different than this fall. Maybe you have, for the first time, someone going off to college, or maybe you have someone going off to kindergarten. Maybe you have a parent moving in, or you're moving across country. And so to take just a little bit of time and ask, what this season is going to require of you. And so what maybe you would require of your house, but then also honoring the season itself. So all of those things can be wrapped up into house hushing, decorating, and decluttering in a way that turns down the visual volume of your home. I hope it's an alternative, and I love minimalists. I respect them. I want to be like them, but I like having other ways to maybe make some decisions. So I hope that's what the whole idea of house hushing offers.
Yeah, I love those 4 aspects of it. And I am thinking like that the minimalism, like of having it doesn't necessarily mean the house has been hushed, right? It could be too cold and it's not, the definition is not like the opposite of maximalism. But I think that in order to do this well, I would imagine that you kind of have to really be in tune with yourself too, like your emotions, how you feel in the space, and getting feedback. And like you said, it will change in different seasons. How do you know when your house is sufficiently hushed?
It's a great question. And you're right. Like, first of all, we're the only person that really knows, and the other people that live there.
Yeah.
I know my house is hushed if I can do the regular stuff that my life requires without feeling like now I need to take an hour and clean up everything, or I have to take an hour before and move all my styled surfaces, like move everything over so I can cook, or if I want to do a puzzle, if it doesn't take me lots of time, then a hydration plan just to like figure out what surface I could possibly do a puzzle on. So for me, either having people over or just living my everyday life, if that feels like it's a lot of work because of the stuff already around me, then that's usually, I feel like that's my house saying, excuse me, ma'am, but it's time to hush it. And I usually will like backwards declutter or kind of hush my house purposely. I'll do every room about twice a year, usually like January and kind of like right before school starts as well. And I do one room at a time. And you can do it quick. Like you could just hush a countertop if you want. There's just different ways to create little pockets of quiet. And it's surprisingly easy and surprisingly peace-giving.
Yeah, because your home really needs to support your life. If it's being loud and noisy and distracting you from other things that are going on, it's not being as supportive as it could be. So as you were developing house hushing, is this something that just came to you intuitively, develop over time? And how did you decide to write a book about it?
Well, I first hushed a house, and I didn't call it that, the day my husband and I came home from our honeymoon. He had lived in another state, and so I was bringing all of my stuff had gotten moved in over the weekend or whatever. And we had just gotten in. He lived in an apartment. And I remember looking at the living room like, oh my gosh, it's like bachelor meets girl who owns two things. It was like the weirdest hodgepodge of stuff. And I remember thinking like, I don't know much, but I do know like, I'm not going to just move all of his stuff, but now we both live here and it should look like we both live here. So we had a guest room at the apartment. And so I just told him, I was like, listen, I'm just going to move some stuff out for a little bit and put it in the guest room so we can just like figure out what we want this living room to look like and where we want things. So I moved all of his like high top basketball shoes that he had 40 of, it seemed like. And he would have like stacks of books and book bags and all of his stuff. And of course, all my girly stuff too. Mm-hmm. I moved all that out. So we kept the furniture, we kept the rug, the TV stayed in there, whatever it was that we had, the art was on the walls, everything else I just moved out so I could like see the room. Mm-hmm. I didn't know it at the time, but I was actually hushing the house. And it was such a friendly way to do it because, all of our stuff, it's just in the other room. We'll get it when we're ready. But then, later when we move into a house, I would hush a room. I would take everything out just temporarily and then like see how it felt. And it just developed. And I found myself maybe after Christmas, you take the tree down and you mop the floor. And then you're like, I feel like this room it kind of needs a reset. And so I would hush it. And the way you hush a room, you don't hush a whole house at once. You hush in a room at a time. If you're picking your family room, then you say, okay, I'm going to hush my family room, which means I also need a place to temporarily put the stuff that I'm moving out of my family room. It's an experiment. It's like 2 days. And hopefully it leads to decluttering. And so in my last house, I would put stuff on my screened-in porch. I have put stuff in my trunk. I have put stuff in a bin. Here, I just put stuff on my dining room table. And it's just for 24 to 48 hours. You tell the family, like, look, it's going to look weird for a little bit. Don't worry. I'm not getting rid of anything without your permission. And you take out that layer of stuff. So now what that looks like is, of course, the furniture stays, the art stays, the curtains stay, the rugs stay. But if I have like tiny margarita tables or little poofs, I'll move those out. I'll move out all the books. I will move out little projects and the sewing and the computers and the little boxes and the tchotchkes and the games and the cat bed and the kids' toys and the book bags, like the baskets full of pillows and throws and spiders, whatever is down there, like just everything on the surfaces, everything on the floor, all those things that we decorate our hearth and our mantle with. Like, the more you can get out and just let the room breathe a bit, the better. And you just give yourself a day or two. And you want to be in the room that you just hushed. So you just experience it. It's going to look weird at first, but you eat dinner in there, hang out in there. If you need a lamp, if you need the remote, bring it back in, bring in what you need, but experience the room with a lot less stuff. And what this does is it allows you to reap the rewards of decluttering without having to make any decisions first. And then from there, you can go back and, make some decisions. And we talk about that. But really, the gist of it is you're getting to see and prove to yourself that you can still have a cozy, welcoming, functional, beautiful home and get rid of stuff. And you can prove that to yourself because you have done that in the room. And of course, if you need to move some stuff in so it gets to your level of coziness, you can. But everyone I've worked with, I've done this with thousands of women, we all end up realizing that we can have the styled, beautiful home that we want with a lot less stuff. So for people like me, obsessed with beauty, this is such a great shortcut to decluttering instead of picking every individual item up and asking, does this bring me joy? Would I buy this again? When's the last time I used it? There's none of that. It's just we're making the decision based on the visual look of the room because we have the functional things that it needs.
That's so good. Yeah, I think just doing that reset would be great to, first of all, dust the corners that never get access. Like sometimes that needs to happen like once a year. But yeah, and then spending time in that room without the things there, and you haven't had to have the stress of making a decision whether to keep it or not. But you get used to that openness and that space of not having all those items there. So then you do have a new perspective. I could see that as you're bringing the items in, you're like, oh, well, we were fine without having a basket with 5 other baskets, like in that corner. So, we can minimalize that some. So I think that's a great method. I really like that. And our listeners can't see how beautiful your house is in the background. What I can see, like, I just love the color palette and just the vignette you have there. In the book, do we get to see more of your home?
Yes, you sure do. It's my house. I went down to my sister's historical home. Hers is more of a colonial. And then my parents just built a tiny house out of her garage. And I went to my parents' house and took some pictures there. So you get to see a couple different homes at different levels of being hushed and different personalities. And I show some before and after. So like, okay, this is how it first started. And this is what I did. So even, I don't know that this room that this is my office that we're talking about. But when I moved in, it was, wallpaper with lots of color. I think the doors were painted a different color. And so I've just over time kept turning down the volume of the things by in this room, I did neutralize a lot. I don't think that to have a simple home that you can't have color. I love color. I love pattern. It's just using it in a way that works for you and pairing that with other things that work for you. And I think that's the skill of that quiet decorating part that minimalists don't even talk about that, but it really has such an effect. And I think the minimalists kind of get it. Like they have white sofas or they have black sofas. And of course, that's the typical. But I know a lot of us who love beauty, we might want a patterned sofa or something like that. We have a room that we color drenched, and I had never color drenched a room like completely before. I even had like drapes made. It was my laundry room. So in front of the washer and dryer in the same color. And it was kind of a dark color. It's one of the darkest colors I use in my house. And I remember thinking like, is this going to feel too buzzy or too chaotic? It's the opposite. Like it feels so quiet in there because everything is the same color. And so I think to learn new ways to have a house that is not as visually stimulating, if you need that, the whole goal is to us each have a house that we're not feeling is asking too much of our attention. Out in the world, there's ads, there's TikTok, there's Instagram, and in our own house is the same. And I think even more so maybe than the past, we're probably craving a house that feels peaceful, but yet still feels like us. It still feels personal. It still feels like it's our style. Maybe if we love color, it has color. If we love our soulful collections, it has collections. And that's what I am about. It's like, how can we live within this tension of simplicity and the soulfulness that we all want? And that's what I love about hushing the house, because it really does allow us to have both if we allow ourselves to maybe pay attention to what it is that we need, right now in our lives.
I love that. Yeah. And I can see the color drenching, how having it all one color is actually simplifying the palette. And so it is more calming, I would think, to have that color drenched room. I'm sure it's beautiful. Well, is there anything else we need to know before we run out and buy the book tomorrow?
Well, I think you're playing this the week that the book comes out. And until the end of the week, we do have some freebies. They're like thank you gifts if you pre-order, or I think my publisher is even leaving it open if you order this week. And one is a 30-minute masterclass that I did, and it's how to find your own style. So I know it can feel like a luxury to listen to ourselves, especially about our house. We have more important things to do, but it really does affect us. We're living our life within our home. We're raising our kids here. We want to feel good when we come home. And so it's called the 30-minute style solution, but it really kind of gets you back in touch with what it is that you love and your taste and yourself. And so that is free. You can watch it immediately. And then also you get the audiobook for free. So of course you want the real hard book because it's got all the photos in it. It's really pretty. But if you want to just listen to it as you're driving or as you're washing the dishes, you'll get the audiobook for free as well. So that's only for a few more days, through Friday, I believe.
Okay, great. Yeah, we'll be sure and have all those links in the show notes so people can access that. And where can they find you, on socials and website?
Yeah, you can find me at thenester.com. There's a link there as well if you decide to look at the book or get your pre-order bonuses, and on Instagram at thenester.
Great. Well, thank you for coming on, and I'm excited to read the book because I'm sure my house can be hushed a little bit more. So.
Thanks, Rebecca. I appreciate it.
So I encourage you to check out those books from Myquillyn and reach out to her if you have any questions. And while you're in the show notes, we have links for you to get some free downloads, to check out My Design Mentor, and all the other great things that we have for you. So also, I'd love to have a review from you if you have been enjoying the podcast. I know Spotify doesn't really have a spot for you to leave any review except for like a rating. But if you go onto Apple Podcasts, there's a spot for you to kind of leave me a message there. And I'd love to hear from you there. Of course, you can always, message me on Instagram. I love to hear that. But it is helpful to have those reviews on Apple Podcasts so that other people can find the podcast just like you have and enjoy it. So that's all I have for you this week. Next week, we'll have another great episode. And until then, stay creative. Thanks for listening. If you love this episode, please leave a rating and a review. This helps me reach other curious creatives like you. If you have a topic request or would like to contact me, simply head over to my website, rwarddesign.com, or email me at podcast@rwarddesign.com.